There are dozens of elected leaders, most of them Democrats, from the North Metro area, from Louisville to Lafayette, from Erie to Boulder. And they're calling on their fellow Democrat, Governor John Hicknelooper, to get tough on oil and gas regulations. And one of those elected leaders joins us now, Broomfield Councilwoman Guyleen Castriotta. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
So, Governor Hickenlooper, he's positioning himself for a run for president. Why in the world would he abandon his longstanding support for gas and oil now just because you guys are telling him he must?
Well, we don't know. We don't know what he's thinking, but we're thinking locally, and we're joining together locally to have a stronger voice. The laws have to change. They're the same laws that were put in place when the COGCC was founded in 1951. We're talking a population of less than 1 million people, whereas now we're inching towards 6 million. Previous drilling operations were a single vertical well in the middle of a rural area, possibly in farmland, and we're still abiding by these rules with brand new technology, multi-well megapads, and close proximity to homes and schools and drinking water. So it's a different set of rules that we need to follow. They're not protecting the health and safety of our community.
Certainly the existing rules have seen court challenges and they've been upheld. What makes you think that a radical departure from the current regulatory structure, the paradigm shift as you're calling for, could withstand legal challenges?
Well, it's going to depend on the November elections, because most of the common sense regulations that were introduced just last year were defeated by one vote in the Senate. They were all sent to the Kill Committee, which is headed by Vicki Marble, who's term limited and doesn't have anything to lose. So every bill to protect our health and safety was sent there to die.
You have talked about the current dynamic as one in which energy companies are creating border wars between neighboring municipalities. What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, in Broomfield, when they came to us and proposed 140 wells, part of the negotiation before I was on council was to move 40 wells outside of Broomfield into Erie. That's next door. It's called the Coyote Trails Pad, and it's causing a lot of trouble for the people that live 500 feet from those wells. There's about 40 planned there. And then next was, and again, this was before I was in office, part of the negotiations was to move 65 wells away from future development into the backyard of Adams County. And so now Adams County is protesting that they're going to be impacted and they want to have a say in the siting of these wells. And that's going to happen tomorrow. I
can understand the idea that municipalities might want a united front, but at the end of the day, you're still up against the rules and you're up against people's rights to access the minerals that they own. So other than simply raising a stink, what does a united front from various municipalities look like practically?
Well, we're not trying to ban fracking, and we understand that they have property rights as well, but it's not being balanced right now. Most of the weight is balanced in the side of the oil and gas industry, and we want more equity. We want to be able to have a say in where these wells are put. We have land use authority in every other aspect of our jobs with regard to zoning, and industrial zoning is just that. So when you're bringing in these large industrial operations in residential zoning, it conflicts with our master plans and our comprehensive plans for our municipalities, and we want to take that control back.
I certainly can understand how that would be frustrating for an elected leader. But it should be said, nobody has the right to build a Walmart that people don't want in a neighborhood, whereas people do have a right to the gas and oil that they own. So practically speaking, what changes are you calling for? Well,
we want to look at the regulations. We want to try to make them more reflective of the current technology, because when you're dealing with a 40-well megapad, it has a much bigger impact to the community than one single vertical well. And the COGC hasn't been willing to do that. So we're putting pressure on the governor and our legislators and hopefully bringing people to the polls to get leaders that really want to help put people first.
It is fair to say that if Congressman Jared Polis is elected governor, he's the Democratic candidate, he would be the biggest critic of oil and gas that we have had in the governor's mansion. Do you think that he's wholesale behind your agenda?
I believe so. I think he really has a bigger picture, too, and wants us to try to work towards sustainable energy. We're not devoting enough money and resources to that, instead of just falling back on the easy way with natural gas. And there is a finite amount of that, so you have to think, what about the future? And I believe he's got that vision.
So talk to me about how that would work, because I think people say, well, renewable energy, that's attractive. Spinning up renewable energy is not going to stop somebody from wanting to drill in Broomfield or Erie or Dacono or someplace like that. What do you see as the practical impact? Are you thinking a 30-year game here?
Well, we're already seeing the impacts. XL Energy is offering alternative energy sources, wind and solar, to consumers. And we as a county are taking part in those new sources because it's revenue neutral. So it's already happening. Because of public pressure, our number one energy company is starting to divest.
Would you like to see the governor go in, or the next governor go in and clean house on the Oil and Gas Conservation Committee?
Well, I think it deserves review to make sure that there's no conflicts of interest. I think that's going to be up to the governor to decide. I think the patterns are there. They've never denied a permit, regardless of where it was located. And they haven't listened to the protests of the communities to say this is a bad area. And we want some of that responsibility, because ultimately it is our responsibility to protect our citizens. So we deserve to have a say.
Why do you think this has become such a partisan issue, energy development and siting and things like that?
I honestly don't know. I wish it wasn't the case, because we should all worry about the environment, the one planet that we have, and the air we breathe. But I think it has a lot to do with money and politics, lobbying. There's a lot of elected officials who will take campaign finances from the oil and gas industry, and I think that influences their vote.
So what role do you see oil and gas playing in the governor's election? Because certainly you think they would be supportive of the Republican nominee Walker Stapleton, but I haven't seen any wholesale move for them to get involved, perhaps because they don't think that Mr. Polis is beatable. Do you see the governor's race as a referendum on energy issues and energy development in our state? It
might be part of it, and it may be too soon to tell. But what you are going to see with Initiative 97, which is Colorado Rising, the 2,500-foot setback initiative, it's gaining a lot of momentum. It will get on the ballot. And the counter-organization, Protect Colorado, has raised over $8 million to try to defeat it. So I think that's where you're going to see a lot of money being poured into the race.
Industry would say that that 2,500-foot setback is a de facto ban, that essentially you would be banning production.
It's not even a half mile. I think that's a little bit dramatic.
We have invited industry representatives on this program. We hope that they will come on to continue the conversation. Guyleen Castriotta from Broomfield Council, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.